Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Laura Kufner.
Hi, everyone.
Laura Lennox Kufner.
Yes,
That's
the full deal.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And as I stalked you in social media to come up with good questions, in some places you're Laura Lennox, in other places you're Laura Eiffel, in other places Laura Kufner, some places Laura Lennox Kufner or Laura Lennox. There's a lot of different names out there.
Yeah, and I've never thought about it.
Really? Are you now, or have you ever been in the witness protection program?
I know, but I think that's what I would have to say if I were.
That's right.
Like
Good point. So you're from around here.
I am. I grew up in Clinton Corners.
And
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Clinton Corners?
9 Partners Road. It's right up the hill from what I'll always call the Schultzville store, but I think is now called the Golden Russet.
Right.
Yeah, I grew up there, and
Wow.
Now it's very chic.
So did you walk to the Schultzville General Store when you were a kid?
Oh, every day, several times a day.
And what would you get there?
Yoo-hoo.
Right.
We would get my brother Ben. He was a good thief until he wasn't. But he would just fill his jacket with Charleston chews and Yoo-hoos because our parents were very anti-sugar. So we would kind of distract them and then send him on a mission. And yeah, so it was like candy all the time. We just wanted to get that from the Schultzville store.
Wait, you would distract your parents.
Yes.
You'd create a diversion.
Yes.
And how many of you were there?
6.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So 5 of you would get in a fight, and the larcenous brother would go up there and boost some chocolate.
Yeah, we went one step further. We had a bike that we would lean against the side of the house, and we would lower my brother Ben down sometimes with a rope. He'd get on the bike, and then he'd fly through the woods to the store and then come back with the goods, and then we'd immediately hide it with our Nintendo, which was also not allowed. And then we would convene late at night and play Donkey Kong till sunrise and drink Yoo-hoo and stuff.
That is just such a beautiful youth. And
It really is.
and so there's 6 of you.
Yeah, there are.
And you're still around. Are others still around?
No, I'm really the only one in my family who was bitten by the Hudson Valley bug and developed such a deep love for this place. The rest of my family, my 4 brothers live in Florida, and my sister is in one of the Dakotas, I think South Dakota, Lake Preston right now.
Wow.
So yeah, everybody left except me. I'm the last lone soldier on the hill here.
But it sounds like your youth was pretty good, and you got along with everybody. And
Yeah, it was exciting out there in Clinton Corners.
And then here's these other 5 siblings just getting as far away as they could.
Yeah. They didn't like the New York winters. My father would take us down to Florida to go sailing every summer, and they just fell more in love with that half of our childhood experience.
Right.
So I think they just wanted ocean and things like that.
And where would you go in Florida to do the sailing?
We would go to Miami. My dad had a job at a marina for a bit, and we had a boat down there.
Okay.
A boat called the Lennox, named after my sister. And we used to go out on sailing adventures with all 6 kids in the Keys and the Dry Tortugas, which is
right.
China Islands area.
And was your mom interested in that as well? Or
now that I'm a mother, I have a lot of questions.
Is she no
Were
longer?
you totally miserable?
Is she no longer with us?
Oh no, she's alive. My mom.
Good. Well, you got to ask her.
Yeah, well, my mom, there's no way she's telling the truth because you ask her oh, Mom, I have 3 kids. My mom had 6. I'm always I thought if I had half as many kids as you, it would be a breeze.
Twice as manageable.
Turns out it's really hard. And so I ask her at what point did you fall apart, Mom? Give me the dirt. She's I just loved every second of every pregnancy. And I'm but I remember a lot of screaming, and flailing of hands and days in the back seat of the Volvo that felt pretty chaotic.
What the hell kind of Volvo carried 8 passengers, 2 adults and 6
Oh,
kids?
a Volvo 940 with the way back seats.
Oh, right.
That's what I don't think that's the technical name, but that's what we called them as kids.
The way back.
Yeah, they
The
would
way back,
face
yeah.
out the back window.
It was so nice to
Oh, it was
be in the
awesome.
way back.
Yeah.
So you would have 3 in the way back, 3 in the back, and then the folks up front.
I think we may have been breaking some laws. I think we might have had 4 across in the second seat because there are only 2 seats in the way back
I know,
of a
it's not big.
Volvo 940 wagon.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to go on road trips, and you could write like questionable words on a piece of paper and like put them up against the glass so the car behind you could read them. Or write like butt and put it.
Butt and poop. And so then what? Did you ever get busted doing that?
No. That when there are 6 kids, you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So we used to do road trips all the time. My mom told us kids, we were just 2 of us, because eventually somebody would fart.
Yes.
My mom would say, okay, let's see your tongues. And we would be like, what? She said, yeah, your tongue turns brown if you farted. And so, of course, the person who dealt it wouldn't stick their tongue out. And she'd be like,
that's amazing.
Normie, you need to not do that in the car. You are Mary, my sister. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good trick.
Did you play games? Did you play road games?
We used to make up songs like raps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we're really into rapping. It was just in the way back. It was always the next oldest sibling, my brother Ben,
Okay.
and I.
And
And then the older kids were, I think, in the middle seat.
So Ben and you were the 2 youngest?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a lot of
So
adventures.
you're the very youngest.
Yeah.
And
I always say that's why I turned out the best, because I was parented the least. Because,
oh, yeah.
my oldest brother, he was parented the most, right? Because he was
Right.
like, when you have your first kid, you're like, I'm going to do everything right. And then that just wanes.
Oh, yeah.
By the time you get to number 6, you get a lot of independence as number 6.
Yeah.
Which
My
is
big
good.
sister still lords it over me. She's like, I got in all the trouble so that you wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Because my parents were like, it's okay. And where would you go in the road trips in this big Volvo?
Oh, just to Florida and back.
Oh, okay.
Just a million.
That's it.
A million times to Florida and once to Utah.
And did you ever stop at south of the border?
Oh, yeah, every time.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, gosh. What a post-apocalyptic wasteland of a stretch of asphalt that place is.
It really is. It's a long ass drive.
Yeah.
And you get to the Florida border, it's like woohoo, and then
Yeah.
you have like another 8 days of driving.
Yeah.
It's
You're like, south of what border? Yeah.
and yeah. So you said your dad was working down there at a marina
Yeah. Yeah.
in the summertime? Is that what you said?
Yeah. My parents owned a business out in Clinton Corners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a home for psychiatric patients. It's
Oh,
a very
boy.
large group home that is still out there. It's been turned into apartments, but it was called Brookstone Community Residence. And they owned that for 30 years.
Oh, boy.
And my mom homeschooled us for part of that, and it was a pretty interesting childhood. But yeah, they took care of patients for 30 years.
And were they trained psychologists or therapists or shrinks?
You want me to say yes, right? But no.
No, I want you to say no. That's the exciting answer.
My mom is a psychiatric nurse, but
Okay.
she went to school when she was 40. Back then, you could just do that.
That must have been wild. Did you ever go to the place with them?
Oh, for the first 8 years of my life, we lived in an apartment that was in the same building. So very much so. I had a lot of exposure to those patients. We cooked for them. We organized Christmas for them. It was totally part of the family. And my brother and I spent a lot of time in the basement of that building, which was super creepy with lots of rooms. And so a huge part of my life.
Wow.
I waited at the bus stop with all the patients, which was really hard as a kid.
Where were they going?
They would go to a program in town, right in town.
Uh-huh.
There's a mental health center. I don't know if it's still there. It's where the Teague engineering place is, right before the bagel shop on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there used to be a mental health day program there.
I think that just shut down like 6 years ago or so.
Yeah. Yeah, so the patients would go there, and so they would be kind of walking around town, and 15 years ago, everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, those people,"
You
because
could
they would.
always tell because they were always chain smoking.
Yes, yes. And when I was a teenager, it was really embarrassing for me because they knew my name. So I'm trying to be cool in town with my friends. I lived out in the country, so it's like the day I get to go into Samuel's with $5.
Right.
And then all these psychiatric patients are like, Laura. I'm like, oh.
And did your friends ever say stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
teenagers
My
can be
friends were
so
like, that
cruel.
is so cool. Let's go talk to them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, absolutely. Every one of my friends was like, this is awesome. Let's go talk to them.
Huh.
And I'd be like, no, please don't.
And please don't. So you never flipped and started being like, yeah, that's my boy William.
I totally flipped. When I realized that was social currency, I totally flipped.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in about the 9th grade. I was so embarrassed. And then when I got to a little bit older, I realized that it made me cool. And I was like, heck yeah, come over to my house. We'll go visit them. And we used to, I remember the summer that Puff Daddy and Mace came out. We got cable for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And I just binge watched MTV all summer. And there was one of those patients who always carried a cassette player, and he had a Mace tape. And my friends and I would just take a walk over there and just in the evening just listen to hip hop with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were low risk, nonviolent psych.
Yeah, such sweet people. There was one old man, Ed. He was a veteran who had bad PTSD. Of course, I didn't understand any of this as a kid.
Right.
And he was really sweet, and I didn't even really understand what he ever did that was out of sorts. He kind of was just sitting on the porch, and when he passed, we went up to clean out his room. And he had on the walls of his room every single school picture of us, of all 6 of us, just covering the walls. And it was just such a moving experience. So a lot of those characters were a big part of my life. And then when I got older and I started to learn about life and psychiatric disorders, I was like, oh,
right.
Wow. Okay.
But at the time when you were a kid, what was your understanding of what their deal was and why they were staying in this place?
I don't think I had an understanding. I think I found them in a childish way funny.
Right.
And we would kind of make fun of them as kids because that's
Right.
what kids do. And I knew enough to be embarrassed to wait with them at the bus stop.
Right.
But I did not have a grasp.
So you knew they were different. They were othered somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
What an amazing thing. So back to this guy, Ed, was it, who had the
Yeah,
pictures of you,
Ed
of all
Krasowski.
6 kids
Yeah.
on the walls? I thought you were going to say it was creepy as fuck, but you said it was it seems that your reaction was, that's kind of sweet.
It was so moving.
That's
yeah.
so nice.
I guess I was old enough to have the appropriate empathy, but yeah, I was deeply moved by that.
Right. And had
He was
enough
such a sweet
experience with the
guy.
guy to know that he's got a good heart and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What an amazing thing. So did any of your siblings go into mental health professions at all?
No.
See, there I wanted you to say yes. So you went into teaching,
Yeah.
right? Is that what you always wanted to do?
I wanted to be a vet, actually.
Oh.
I wanted to be a vet, but then I got an internship at a clinic when I was 15 and realized pretty quickly that was not the right job for me.
How come?
You spend your day in contact with a lot of very, a lot of fluids,
Ooh.
a lot of stinky fluids, and a lot of gross things. And I thought that I had a strong stomach. And then one day I had to assist in this surgery with a dog, this little Jack Russell. He got hit by a car and a little flap of his hip skin was off and his bone was exposed. And it was my job to use betadine and gauze to kind of disinfect the bone. And all of a sudden, all I could hear was that sound of the gauze against the bone, and the rest of the world just shut out. And then I woke up on a couch in the waiting room.
Oh.
I'd fainted right on top of the dog.
Oh, no.
I apologize to whoever's dog that was, but.
Do you remember the dog's name?
And then, no. And then I was like, okay, I thought I was up for this, and I'm not. I'm pretty squeamish. So then after that, it was like a pretty direct road to teaching.
I see. But now you've got 3 children.
I do.
And I always say when people like present me with something gross, I'm like, I got 3 kids. I'm not an ounce of squeamishness left. Have you found that your squeamishness has abated somewhat with the kids?
Oh, yes.
Because the kids are nonstop fluids. And
well, I mean, the veterinarian clinic is worse.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's worse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, with the kids, I'm not. I think actually being a sailor has made me less squeamish, because with kids, you're dealing with mostly throw up and fecal matter, right? So, and when you're a sailor, you have to deal with a lot of that too, because,
Right.
you know.
And you grew up sailing.
I did, yeah. My dad was a sailor, and then one of my brothers bought a catamaran when we were teenagers, and we used to play on that. And then my friend Asher brought me to Rokeby one day, and we had a great adventure out on a catamaran that Ricky hooked up for us. So that means it was broken in like 5 different ways and had a hole in the hull, nothing. And
Right.
so we like kind of half sunk it and then had to swim it to shore. And I was like, this is speaking to me. And so and then Ricky was like, come here whenever you want. So I just started windsurfing there, actually. And then I got my own boat when I was like 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mean you described this like horrible thing again, like the catamaran sinking, the duct tape coming off in the water, and you had to like sort of swim it to shore.
Yeah.
You're like, that's when I knew I'd found my place.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's
weird.
why I'm bringing it up again.
Yeah.
Are there other things like that in your life where you sort of zagged where most people would zag? I mean, because it seems like people say, "Oh, I never want to do that again," but you're like, "That's my place."
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just like a certain level of pandemonium. I like a narrative arc. You know, I'm an English teacher, so I like when that's happening in my life, and I'm gravitate towards people who carry a certain level of excitement, and I
Right.
know that where they go, there will be stories, and the Hudson River is just a fertile ground for that. I mean, you're sailing and ice sailing,
As
and
is
all of
Rokeby.
these. Yeah, and then the characters at Rokeby and people just being experimental and not being afraid to go out there, and nothing's perfect and you have to get messy. It's cool.
Right.
I like that.
So you've got 3 kids. Are you going to have 3 more now? I mean, you said you like pandemonium.
No, actually, yeah, no. Kids, the pandemonium that comes with kids is just a different level.
Right.
No, that's like an attack on your nervous system.
And does your husband like pandemonium as well?
He's a really adventurous guy, and he is a great sailor, and I think that he likes that adventure too. Yeah, he likes to get out there and ice sail in the winter. He goes windsurfing by himself on the river as often as he can, which I think is a brave thing to do. Yeah, so I guess we're really similar in that way. We like the same amount of adventure, I think.
Did you meet at some sort of sailing thing?
We met on the beach at Rokeby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Max is my husband. Max was keeping a boat there. Gerald, my father-in-law, who's a neurologist, was Ricky Aldridge's.
Really want to get Gerald on this show too.
Yeah. He was Ricky's neurologist. So, so just through that connection, and then I met Max on the beach, and then we just kind of ended up together over and over and over again in sailing-based scenarios. And then when we were in our late 20s, we joined the Kingston Race Club with with our friend Pat, on this boat that we still have on a mooring at Rokeby, actually, this Lightning. And so we'd race every Sunday. And then Max and I, then we got together. And
Well, wait, let's not skip over that. So you're racing, people are throwing you together in these boats, then you're racing together.
yeah.
And at some point, one of you or both of you at the same time, Cupid's arrow hit you both, were like, hey, I kind of want to kiss this person.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did you go from being sort of like sailing buddies to, smooching?
We went on this crazy sailing trip across Buzzards Bay in Massachusetts, from Mattapoisett, in terrible weather, cold, bitter wind across the bay in an open trimaran with 3 other friends. After a night of partying in Rhinebeck, we hatched this plan, like, let's all get together tomorrow and do this. But we did it. And we were screeching across Buzzards Bay with, water flying all over us. It was cold. And we had this incredible sailing trip on the Elizabeth Islands that are there. They go from Woods Hole south, and they're owned by the Forbes family. So you can't really go ashore, but they're very beautiful. The last island in the chain is Cuttyhunk, and you can go on shore. So we just had this rugged sailing trip, and we just brought like a bottle of gin and a pack of rolling tobacco, and we just went for it. So underprepared, and we got into a Cuttyhunk, and the anchor was snagged on something, and Max, he stripped down to his underwear, and he jumped in the water, and it was cold, and he dove down over and over and over again to dislodge this anchor, and in the process of which he cut his foot on a clamshell, and he came up, and I looked at him, and I realized I need to take care of this person. He needs like
beautiful
a towel
story.
and a hug. And then we he was like, we got, everything settled with the boat. We wanted to go out for a drink in Cuttyhunk. So he put his foot in a plastic bag, and it was bleeding.
To collect the blood?
Yeah, and he wrapped a rubber band around it, and then he stuffed it back in his knockoff boat shoes that he bought at Marshall's, Sperry's.
Yeah.
Well, he bought the knockoff ones at Marshall's. They were blue.
Jerry's,
and the dye had leaked out of his foot, and so his feet were blue, and he had one in a plastic bag, but he was so happy, and we were just so jubilant, and like none of that mattered. And that was the moment I fell in love with him, and I was like, this guy is the best. Like, I just want to buy him some real Sperry's.
Yeah, and some actual gauze and Band-Aids. And
yeah, we had a phenomenal time on that trip. So that was kind of it. And then and then after that,
and in the years that came after that, you must have discussed all of that. Mm-hmm. So he knows. When was it the same time for him? And he's like, yeah, I'm really just in love with this woman.
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever told me the story of when it hit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
It's a good question.
Yeah, very good question. So his foot turned out okay.
Yeah.
Did it require stitches or anything?
No, it was just a gross, like, clamshell slice,
Right, but those things can get pretty sharp.
Yeah, we sailed for a couple more days after that. But yeah, I don't know. I just remember that blue color of his feet was so unnerving.
That's nice. So sailed for a couple more days across Buzzards Bay.
Yeah.
And these islands that you could or couldn't stop on.
Yeah.
And did the weather improve the next couple of days?
No, man. It rained like just torrential downpour. We slept in I think like the woods on Cuttyhunk in these tents. All together, there were like 4 of us in a tent, and we were all spooning, and every 30 minutes we would yell flip, and we would flip, and we were just in inches of water, and we just had the best time. And 2 weeks ago we brought all 3 girls back, and we redid that trip with all 3 girls.
Did you say it was an open trimaran?
Not on the open trimaran. We're much more careful now. No, we have a 24-foot boat that we keep in Kingston.
Okay.
And we can put that on a trailer. We can trailer it to Cape Cod and then go sailing for a couple days. So we just redid that trip, including the visit to Cuddy Hunk, and that was pretty cool.
Love that. And how old are the girls?
They are about to turn 2, 4, and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do any of them sort of know, like, oh yeah, this is where mom and dad became a couple?
We did tell them when we were in Cuddy Hunk Harbor.
Right. And the 6 and the 4 probably had stars in their eyes.
Yeah,
like, oh,
definitely.
And the 2-year-old's like, I'm thirsty. Is that about right?
I want to jump in the water naked. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's just spectacular. So you, after that thing, you said that was late 20s, the open air trimaran,
Yeah.
which sounds so horrible. And like the bloody foot, it all sounds really tough, but you ate it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after that, you and Max are a couple.
Yeah.
Did you start hatching plans for bigger sailing adventures?
Yeah. Immediately. We got together
You're like,
and
this
we
was
were
horrible. Let's do more.
let's go big. Yeah. We were at lunch one day and Max said to me, he said, how long do we have to date before we buy a boat and sail away? And I was like, been waiting my whole life for someone to ask me that question. And I was like, let's do it. And then we bought a boat and then we worked on it for 2 years. And
What
then we
kind of-
set sail.
What kind of boat did you buy?
We bought a 32-foot West Sail,
Okay.
which is a great boat. It's incredibly seaworthy and safe. It's also beautiful, and we got one for a good price in the Bronx. And then we worked on it for 2 years.
Did you have something in particular in mind for this boat?
Yeah, we always wanted to circumnavigate South America. We wanted to go to Patagonia. We wanted to get down there.
Okay, I understand like wanting to go to Patagonia or, you know, these other islands. But why did you want to circumnavigate South America?
I think that Max spent some time in Chile before that, and he was really in love with the country. Chile has a system of fjords on the coast that are just endless and amazing. It's a beautiful country. The people are amazing. So we kind of really wanted to get there. And I had spent a little bit of time in Patagonia as well, and it's just it's just so beautiful. So I think that was our motivation. And from New York, you can kind of.
Lots of people want to get there. They don't think like, oh, let's buy a boat, fix it up, and sail there.
Yeah, I know.
But it was your mutual dream.
Yeah, it was a mutual dream.
Right.
Yeah.
So you bought this boat in the Bronx. What was it called?
Well, actually, when we bought it, it was called Easy Goer.
Oh.
Yeah, like Goer, Goer, which I didn't like that at all. And then we were, but it's bad luck to rename a boat, so we were a little conflicted. But then I was cleaning out the drawers and I flipped one over and it said SV Tortuga. And I was like, all right, that's a name I can get behind. So we changed the name back.
The name before Easy Goer.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's all these superstitions surrounding like renaming a boat and stuff, and even like things you're supposed to do. Yeah. What are some of those things? And did you have to do any of them if you're taking it back to its original name?
I don't know. I never researched that.
Oh, you didn't?
We just slapped Tortuga on the back and felt like it was a good vibe. It suited the boat too. It's like slow and steady. You know, it's a strong boat.
Because Tortuga means turtle, or tortoise. Or,
Yeah.
Huh. So, and it wasn't bad luck for you. It turns out.
No, we had phenomenal luck. We had this outrageous medical kit prepared. You know, Gerald had us hooked up with suturing kits and Novocaine and all this stuff. We used a couple Band-Aids.
And did either of you have any practice suturing?
No.
Gerald bring steaks home and say, all right, slice this up.
We were supposed to, and then we just never got around to it. And I was like, okay, I really hope that doesn't happen.
Right.
And then Max's boss at the time was a little worried about us, so he signed us up for a weekend-long sailing safety course.
Oh, nice.
So we went to the city, and we did like overboard drills on boats and stuff. So we were pretty prepared, but we just never got hurt, which took a lot of. We were just really careful.
And did any of those safety stuff from the weekend in Bronx come in handy?
No, we never had to do a man overboard drill. We never had to do anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Amazing. So you spent 2 years fixing the boat up. Was it you brought it from the Bronx up to up here, up to Kingston or Poughkeepsie or?
Yeah, we lived in Brooklyn at the time, so we'd actually
Okay.
just drive out there for the weekend.
Oh,
But
nice.
then eventually we finally brought it up the river to Kingston and docked it here and put the finishing touches on it. But we spent a lot of time at that place down south fixing it up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which is just a beautiful labor of love for a young couple in love, a fabulous project.
Well, it's actually really important because if you just pay someone to fix something for you, you don't learn anything about how it works or where the parts are or how to fix it yourself. We got into every crevice and cranny of that boat and cleaned it, and we rebuilt the engine ourselves. We pulled the whole engine out. We had some help from some professionals up here, but we put it all back together. And as a result, whenever we were out at sea and anything went wrong with the engine, we kind of like knew it, you know?
Right.
And redoing all the rigging and stuff, you have to get an intimate connection with that, or else that really is dangerous if you
Right.
just kind of pay someone, oh, get me a boat that I can just step on and sail away. Well, spending 2 years in every crevice of that boat is a much better use of your time if you want to be safe, you know?
And so was it dry docked during that whole time?
No, it was in the water actually. And then we pulled it out and we like redid the bottom and stuff like that. So a little bit of both.
Okay. And then did you like slam a bottle of champagne across the bow and put it into the water when you
Oh
were
yeah,
all
we
ready
had
to go?
we had a huge party with all
you did?
the sailors from the Hudson Valley at Hideaway Marina.
Where's
There's actually a really robust sailing community here. There's
Right.
some great sailors who have gone on incredible adventures from the Hudson Valley. There's a great history of that. So we had a big send-off party.
where's Hideaway Marina?
It's right in if you entered the Rondout Creek, it's right on the right, past that bridge that they've redone. You just go underneath that to
Yeah,
the right
yeah.
and it's back in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's where it was. You put it in the water and you're going to the bottom of South America.
Yeah. It was fabulous. It was hard.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
What was the furthest that you two had sailed prior to that?
That's a good question. Max had done delivery from the Caribbean to New York, I think, with some friends of ours, also local folks. And I had spent a year teaching maritime literature on an old tall ship for Ocean Classroom Foundation, which is one of those like semester at sea programs for high schoolers. So I had been out on the ocean for basically, I guess, a combined, 8 months or something like that. But I wasn't the captain. I wasn't the first mate. I was the maritime literature teacher. But I had been at sea and I knew what that felt like. So I was prepared in that way.
Fine.
But no, for both of us, it was our first really big trip.
Right.
Yeah. It was a year and 10 days we were out there.
It's spectacular. We'll get back to it, but let me ask this. You talk about like bringing Melville or Coleridge or whatever to this, the maritime literature. Those are the only people I know. And I think a lot about like the utility of art in our lives. And you
Yeah.
said you rebuilt the engine, so you know how to do that. How did your understanding of the pertinent literature help you all out during your big trip?
That's a really good question. And I think that I think it's so essential because maritime literature is romantic. It's about adventure on the high seas and youth. And it's about, hardship being worth it and just this incredible otherworldly place that you can get to, like Moby Dick or the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It gets sort of creepy in places. And it's so enticing. And I think you have to have a really good foundation of romanticism to want to go sailing to distant places. And those stories are so good. Like in Herman Melville's book, Typee, which is a lesser known work of his, there's a scene where the sailors arrive on a South Polynesian island and these women come up in a canoe. And the men, you can imagine, they've never seen anything like this, right? And the women come up and they're they're topless and they have these facial tattoos. And he describes that. And it's just, if you really get into the head of those early sailors who had no pictures to reference, no concept of these other people, all of a sudden you are face to face with an entirely new culture. And the women come on the boat and they have this kind of like party with these indigenous people. It's just so
Wow.
romantic. It's wild, right?
Right. But
It's
also
cool.
experiencing something that you have no context for.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you get much of that in your year and 10-day trip?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world where, I mean, there's nothing I saw that I hadn't kind of seen a picture in National Geographic of or something like
Right.
that. But there was a lot I experienced that I'd never experienced. To be really one with the weather
Right.
and to be surrounded by whales in the Southern Ocean, to be in like a fog-bound fjord of southern Chile, knowing that there's no one close if you needed help, is pretty otherworldly. We went to this set of islands off of Panama called Las Perlas. This place was so full of ocean life. You just felt like the water was teeming with phosphorescence and jellyfish and whale sharks swimming underneath our boat. And you just felt like, oh, the ocean is this wild place where I'm not necessarily in control of my own fate if I jump in that water.
Right.
So we and there was a night I was on night watch where we were surrounded by moon jellies that phosphoresce. So it's like a basketball-sized jellyfish that glows when it's disturbed. I mean, and then that kind of like blends into the sky, and you're just
The
looking
stars
at
and-
360 degrees of just glowing stuff, and you're just plowing through it. It's pretty cool.
Sounds really dreamy and
Yeah.
delightful. So do you have some romantic idea that maybe you'll do this with the kids someday?
Yeah, I would really, yes, but now I've been so humbled by motherhood. That sailing with the 3 kids is pretty challenging. And sailing is a good part misery, right? Like there's a lot of misery out there. You're wet constantly. You can't get clean. The boat's rocking, stuff's flying all over the place. And you're doing it for those spectacular moments, but the kids don't really understand that yet. So you have to put them through it. So yeah, we talk a lot about crossing the Atlantic with the 3 girls once they're old enough to be able to handle it. So we really like to do that. Max has a lot of family in Germany, so we talk a lot about going up to St. John, Newfoundland, and then making the crossing there, which is the shortest point. It's a short point of crossing, and going to northern Germany and exploring that area. So yeah, we'll do it. We practice with them in Cape Cod, and we just made it through 5 days with them, which is pretty cool. So that's our training ground for
Right.
these kids. So hopefully they like sailing. Otherwise, it's a pretty miserable family to be born into, right? Oh, it
happens to all kinds of
you
kids.
just turned 13. Let's go spend a month at sea with your parents, right? It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we have to. I feel we just have.
It's a teenager's
I work with
nightmare.
teenagers, so I'm familiar with what happens, and we have to get them before puberty kicks in, and that natural thing of wanting to be very far away from your parents starts. To do it while they still like us, you know.
Right. Because if you take like a 16 and a 14 and a 12-year-old,
Yeah, that's not right. That's not right for the 16-year-old.
and so what ages do you teach?
I teach right now at Rhinebeck High School. This fall, I'll teach 10th grade, 11th grade, and AP Lit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And will AP Lit be for what grades?
That's a 12th grade class.
Okay.
And that's only because our beloved Sarah Wheeler is taking a sabbatical. So she's the head of the department right now. But so she's going on sabbatical, and I'm covering AP Lit for her.
So to what degree do you get to sort of like manufacture your own syllabus, your own
Oh,
curriculum?
you get so much freedom. And the English department at Rhinebeck is extraordinary. Really intelligent women who have gotten
Is it all women?
Right now it is, although we're hiring someone to take over for Sarah for the year, and I don't know who that will be. But yeah, the existing teachers are incredible, and we have a book room of approved books that is incredibly diverse, incredibly interesting for all levels of readers. So yeah, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of freedom there.
So you saw the curriculum for the Sarah Wheeler's previous AP course. Yeah. Which books did you say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to teach that?
Well, she has really good books on that syllabus. I'm not sure. I'm just sure what I want to include.
Which book? Oh, so you haven't excised any books from the list yet to get your books in.
No, but I just want to do, obviously, a really robust maritime lit, so watch out, AP Lit students.
And so, will they read Moby Dick?
Yeah, we'll definitely do, not the whole thing, excerpts from Moby Dick. I'd like to read some Joseph Conrad, for sure.
Which Conrad?
There's a short story called Youth, which I absolutely adore. And so I'd like to teach that. I'd like to do the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and then maybe some contemporary maritime lit, a little bit of Maiden. So I want to include that.
Maiden's the movie about the women who, do they win or come in second in the Whitfield Cup?
I don't remember. They win a couple legs.
Right.
And then at the end, it just dissolve, it doesn't even matter, because they're just welcomed back with such an incredible reception.
Phenomenal. So tell us a little bit about this movie you referenced. I saw it. It was so good.
Yeah, it's about the Whitbread race. What year was it? It was in the 80s, late 80s. I don't want to say the year. I'm not positive. Tracy Edwards, who was just kind of a waitress who didn't have much experience sailing, decided to put together the first all-female crew to do this round-the-world non-stop race around the Southern Ocean. And no one took her seriously, and no one would fund her, and she had to do a lot of the funding herself, and she put together a pretty incredible crew. And they set out on this sail, and they win several of those legs, and they perform very well overall. And that's what the movie's about, and it's just really moving.
Any interest in doing something like that?
No.
How come?
There's just a limit to my.
Suitably horrible.
Is really intense.
Yeah.
Non-stop around the Southern Ocean.
Yeah.
The daily suffering.
Right.
That you go through. I've been to the Southern Ocean. It's a spooky place. The storms down there are terrifying. I've been in one, and I said to myself, I will never sail again. And I said, as soon as we get to the Falklands, I'm done. Then we got to the Falklands, and the penguins are so cute, and yeah, I forgot about everything. But yeah, no, there's just a limit to my adventurous nature, and that's beyond the limit.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe when I'm older, that'll change. But right now, as a mother of 3, I'm into preservation of life. It's really high on the list.
That's good.
I'm like,
solid motherly instinct.
Yeah.
Huh.
Nervous about crossing the road in Rhinebeck. I'm not.
Good. And so on your circumnavigating trip, were you afraid for your life very often?
No, just that one time.
Okay. Huh.
There was another time that we went through this very dangerous part of the coast of Chile. I made such a big deal out of it. I was absolutely terrified. It was called Golfo de Peñas, which I think just means Gulf of Pain or ruin or sorrow or something.
Right.
And it's like 100 miles. I was so worried about it. And then we did it, and it was no big deal. So the only time I felt really in danger was the Falklands, because, we can predict the weather very well. So Max and I wouldn't sail in bad weather. But then when you get down there around Cape Horn, the storms come with such frequency that you just have these very small windows where you have to go for it. And then the weather changes, so that window can kind of close on you. So you might have to do like a 3-4 day passage to the Falklands. and you only have a 2.5 day window between gales or something like that.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
we hit an extraordinary gale between Puerto Williams and the Falkland Islands.
And that did sound so terrifying to me. I'm
It
imagining like
was.
20-foot waves, or I mean, do you measure that? Were you like they were 20-foot waves, or
I
100-mile
remember.
winds, or I mean, do you quantify
Yeah. We could give an estimate. We could say there were about 60-mile-an-hour winds and a swell, oh gosh, of maybe like 10 meters. But that, I mean,
30 feet?
yeah, but with a long trough. So you kind
Okay.
of, you're like surfing down the wave, and then you just have to be careful not to lose it in the trough. So you're just surfing these huge waves.
Not to lose it, you mean not to steer away from the perpendicular.
Well, yes, exactly. The sailing term is to breach. When you're going down a wave straight, there's a tendency for the boat to swing its weight this way.
Okay.
And the trough of the wave, if you're parallel with the trough of the wave, you'll roll
You're
over.
Screwed. So
Just like if you're kayaking, right? You're always
Yeah.
perpendicular to the wave action.
I can understand how that'd be, really scary, but also possible to keep track of in the daylight.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're doing that at nighttime?
You choose a compass course. You'd be amazed what you can see at night once your vision.
In terms of the swells and
Yeah, and you also can feel it. You can feel it, and the waves are coming in a certain pattern.
You could feel
that
if you
get
breach?
used to it. Yeah, you can feel it, and you can fight it with the tiller. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. So we had like 2 days of that. I was really terrified, but my husband was like, "This is awesome.
No way.
This is like all the stories we've read. This is like Motassier and and like this is it." And I said to him, "This is how people die at sea, Max."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, will it ever end?" And man, we got to the Falklands. I never wanted a beer so bad in my life. I was just staring at that island, and the current was against us, and we just took us so long to get into the safe harbor of the Falklands. And there was another ship, another boat, small boat with sailors, like kind of like us, that pulled in at the same time. And we looked at each other, and they had their mainsail or something was just ripped, and they were all messed up. And we just converged and partied and just like let it all out. And met this really cool sailor, Dimitri, who brought his boat in there at the same time.
And where were they sailing from?
I don't remember. He was a Belgian guy who worked for the he worked in the maritime trades, and he would take 6 months off and sail every year, and he was a really cool guy. So
What-
we just had a blast in the Falklands, and then I was ready to go again. Ready for more.
Yeah, we can't. It was a bad place to quit anyway.
Yeah, it's a really
right?
bad place
Kind of in the middle
to get
of
a
the,
flight home.
Yeah. So after the Falklands, Brazil,
Yeah, Brazil.
and then up the coast.
Yeah, you're not allowed, if you've been to the Falklands, you can't go to Argentina. They don't like that.
Wow. Oh, geez.
Oh, it's
I see.
it's an intense,
It's
yeah.
a political thing.
It's a political thing. If your passport's stamped with the Falklands stamp, you cannot. The Argentinians are livid with
It's
you.
like wearing a
It's
Red
like you
Sox hat at
cheated
a
on them.
Yankees game.
Yeah.
So
So we went to Brazil.
nice.
Yeah, and Brazil was, I mean, just incredible.
And did you spend much time on land there?
We spent a lot of time. We went to Salvador. I don't know if you've heard of that city. It's absolutely spectacular. It was a great source of, during the age of exploration, it was a great source of diamonds and riches. So it's really built up. It's this fabulous looking city that's in utter ruin. So it's all kind of falling apart, and there's this incredible art scene. This is the coolest city I think I've ever been to. Utterly unique. And I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of Salvador. I used to know the history of it really well, but I don't know it that well
Right.
right now. But it's fantastic. Great food.
Yeah. So how long would you stay on land typically?
We would sleep on the boat always, but I think we stayed in Salvador for like 3 weeks or something. We would stay in places. We stayed in Santa Marta, Colombia for a month. If we really liked a place, we we dug in our heels and really spent time with that culture.
So Colombia, you would have passed sort of going either way. Was that on the way out or on the way back?
That was on the way there. So we had to sail to the Caribbean and then through the Panama Canal.
That must have been cool.
So cool. And then Galapagos, Easter Island, and then around the Horn you go from west to east because that's the prevailing winds. You would never go the opposite way.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so we had to go that way. And so we went to Colombia on the way right before the Panama Canal and then again after it.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Colombia is incredible country.
And so when you got back to Colombia, the first place where you'd been twice, I guess, on that trip, did you start to really feel like, oh God, it's the home stretch?
Well, actually, Colombia, that was all on the way there. So we stopped. Colombia has a Pacific coast.
Oh, I thought you said
small.
You went back.
We went to the Caribbean coast of Colombia through the canal and then to the Pacific coast of Colombia.
On the way back.
On the way there.
Oh, on the way there, right.
Yeah, because it's like a figure eight.
Right.
Yeah, our last stop was the Barbados.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last stop, the Barbados. And then you're back in U.S. territory.
Yeah.
And was that a relief? Was it a letdown? Was it a mixed bag of emotions?
Massive relief. I mean, massive. I was so happy. I mean, the trip was amazing, but I was so happy. We could have gone another year. We set aside 2 years, but we got homesick and we decided to come back and settle down and have kids and move back to Rhinebeck.
Wow. And were there other options? Like, let's move to Florida or move to Key West or...
Moving to Florida, I guess, is always an option. But
well, for your family, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We were gonna sail to Germany after that, but we decided that 1 year was enough. I got homesick, and I read there's a great book about Rhinebeck called 100 Miles from Manhattan. You ever read that book by Guillermo Fezer?
Yeah.
I read that.
And there's a chapter on Steve Mostow in there.
Yep.
It's called like The Sultan of Steam or something like that.
Yeah. And I read that between Barbados and New York, and it made me so homesick for all those people.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I said to Max, let's go home and have a baby.
Wow.
So that's what we did.
Pretty good adventure. And then a couple of years passed, you had another.
Yeah.
And then another. And you're on a schedule every 2 years, it seems.
We're off the schedule.
You're off the schedule. Are you sure accidents happen?
Yes. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
As sure as one can be about such things.
Well, good. Congratulations for being as sure as one can be.
Thank you.
And so the next adventure at sea you think will be the Germany trip?
I think so. Maybe about 8-10 years from now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so do you take your boat? Do you still have the Tortuga?
No, we sold that promptly upon return. It's not the right boat for the river.
Right.
And so we were immediately pretty realistic about that. And, it's good to let a boat go. You have to let them go when they're in good shape and go to a new home, a new adventure, a new sailor.
And who bought it? Do they keep in touch? Do they send you pictures of the Tortuga in like Key West or?
Yeah. So this guy bought it. Max keeps in touch with him, but he's just, there's some boat owners who just perpetually work on their boats.
Right.
They're perpetually fiddling and perfecting. And he seems to be one of those. So I don't think he's gone on his big trip with that boat yet, but those boats hold up for so long, and so I hope someone will.
Right. And did he leave the name Tortuga?
That's a good question. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
He better have.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him to have any bad luck.
Change it to one of those really cheesy sailing names, like.
Oh God.
What's a good one?
Yeah, up at that because I kayak, but up the Esopus there's a marina, probably your marina, and all the way up as far as like the kayak can go, there was a boat. It was like a houseboat, and the title was like painted on with house paint.
Yes.
It was
Do you remember
called-
the title?
Yeah, Third Worst Decision. And it was such a good name for the boat.
Third Worst Decision. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I saw one once that was called Morning Wood,
Oh, God.
which took me a second. But I mean, that's pretty fine. There's some bad ones out there.
Yeah.
We have a catamaran that we bought that came with the name Nice Pair.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
yeah. Like a Mel Brooks movie.
Terrible.
So you sold that boat, and what did you get? I know you go out sailing like once a week when the weather's fine
Yeah.
with a group of local women.
Yeah.
And what boat is that?
We have a 24-foot Seaward. That's the one we just took to the Cape. And yeah, I have a women's sailing crew. They're amazing, amazing women. And we go out every
You wanna
Wednesday.
Shout out to them. Any of them
Yeah,
listening?
I'll give a shout out to Lauren, Susanna, Catherine, Ariel, and then we have a lot of guests that come on periodically, and that's part of the joy is that we always bring friends, and that's how I know Catherine and Lauren because Susanna brought them one day, and now we're pretty tight. You know, we're crewmates.
Oh,
We're
that's
crewmates.
great.
So
And do you ever have
they're incredible.
men on this?
Well, it's a very
see where
controversial
I'm going with
question.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sometimes Max really wants to go.
I'll bet.
So this whole thing came not out of any gender discrimination, but Susanna and I were just feeling like whenever we went sailing, there were always our partners telling us what to do constantly, just so often that we couldn't make decisions for ourselves. You know, like when you're sailing, you either fall off or turn up, right? You either go towards the wind or away from it. And so Max would tell me, fall off, turn up, fall off. And my head's just spinning and I can't like figure out how to sail myself because I'm too busy trying to follow directions and stuff like that. So we said to ourselves, let's just go out, just us. And let's just be there and make our own decisions. And then that grew into a weekly meeting that now is I think it's kind of a big deal. I mean, we're just such good friends. And
Right.
like I said, everyone always brings on these really interesting local women and we get to hear their stories. And
It's so good.
yeah, sometimes we don't even sail. We just kind of float and talk. And other times the river is really awake and we have to get involved.
It's a nice metaphor for life, isn't it? Yeah. And you'll teach that in your English class.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We're out of time. Laura Kufner, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. I have one little announcement to make on behalf of the Star Library. Tomorrow, Saturday, July 13th, from 11 a.m. to noon, is Star Summer Stage. They present West African drumming with Amadou Diallo,
That's so cool.
which sounds pretty cool. So now we have 20 seconds. Let me ask, what did you hope to see or do in your trip that you didn't get to do?
I would have spent more time in the Galapagos.
Oh, wow.
You can get a special visa that allows you to go all around certain islands. It's very prohibitive. You know, they're trying to keep everything safe there. So,
Yeah, environmentally safe.
yes.
Right. Laura Kufner, thanks again for being here.
Thank you
What a
so much, Norm.
treat talking with you and hearing about these adventures. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend.